get started.
You got your own?
I was a little too that I had drawings. It's pretty interesting about how to get trees.
Okay, all right. We'll call the meeting to order for Ashland Planning Commission for September 14th, 2016. We'll have a call by Joe. Roll call.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Flanagan?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Ms. Jewell?
Here.
So this is Mr. Collins that I've been getting emails from.
Yes. Joe is filling in for Nancy. He is actually the clerk of council, isn't he? So,
Yes.
Yeah.
so welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
We do have a quorum, and do we have any changes to the agenda as written?
Yes, I believe we were trying to move.
CIP. We may move the CIP under discussion items to the first item and then continue but we won't do that right now. So, okay, we're good. All right. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak to us about anything that is not on the agenda? Now's the time to do that. If you have any news.
Someday I'm going to do that.
Seeing no one, we'll close citizen input. Presentation of minutes. We had the August 10th, 2016, August 24th, 2016 work session. Are there any changes? Not, may I have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes from the past meetings.
Okay, if Joe will do a roll call.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Ms. Jewell?
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. And now we'll have the public hearings. The first item that we will hear is this is rezoning 16-0609 Bulifant Homes, and also we'll do the CUP 16-0609. Before we open the public hearing, Mr. Garrett, do you have anything to add from past presentations?
Yeah, I just have a short presentation to update us on where some changes from last month. So this is Bulifant Homes rezoning and conditional use permit. So again, it's to change the zoning of the property from R2 to R3 to construct 6 single-family attached homes. So that's 12 units total. And in the R3 zoning, you also need a conditional use permit. So there's a few different measures. One, when we talk about proffers, that's associated with the rezoning, and then with the conditional use permit, staff has some recommended conditions to go along with this. So to give you an idea, again, where we're talking about in the context of the larger neighborhood, North Macon Terrace, just to the north of this parcel, really kind of this is a completing piece for that neighborhood. The Randolph-Macon Fields down there to the southwest, and then Carter's Hill just to the north. A little more zoomed in picture. This is probably the overall view when we look at some of the concept plan and layout of what we see, where you have Haley Court, that's north, entrance into North Macon Terrace to the east, and then Cali Street to the north. And so from the August meeting, there have been updated proffers and a layout that's in your packet to address the comment letter that staff had sent as far as the concept plan and the actual language of the proffer, making sure that it's legally enforceable and that it's clear. And then from the comments that we received in the past meeting from some of the neighbors, the address maintaining basically the existing buffer that's there of landscaping, which you'll see here in a minute on the conceptual plan with this development. And so some of those changes, what it did to the layout of the plan, instead of having the homes where they faced different directions, they mostly all now face the street. The lot lines, if you remember, were at diagonals or weren't in kind of that standard right-angled lot line like we like to see in Ashland. The road connections now, line up basically with Cali Street where they didn't before. So it's really moved its way into where it's legally conforming with our rules that we basically have. And so that's what you're seeing here on the screen. It's the new layout. This is Haley Court, so this would be the extension of Haley Court Road, and then you would make a right up onto Cali Street. The light tan brown, those are the main structures of the homes, and you have a little sort of a carport porch area that overhangs that's in front of each one of the homes. This is the added landscape buffer that was included there to the east, north, and south of the property. And again, this being a centrally managed type HOA, you can have that put in place and managed by a single entity as far as not being disrupted during construction is something we would watch during the site plan, that things such as stormwater or the sidewalks or the landscaping, all of that is going to be assured before any shovel hits the dirt, because there will be plans they'll have to go through to get site plan approval for construction before that occurs. And this is another thing, I think what really calls to what we'll get to into a second of hitting the density bonuses and those kind of points in the comprehensive plan. So the development looked at what are some of the more traditional colors that were used in Ashland's development. And so these are the colors that are going to have to be used on the homes throughout the development. Here are a few pictures of the elevations. These are also in your packet, but you see this is, so again, they're kind of two single-family attached homes. So there's the front elevation of one, and then this would be the front elevation of the other with the, kind of carport area right here that sticks out in front of the building. And then this would be your side elevation. This would be most seen if you were making that right then onto Cali Street in the development. And so how staff is evaluating this proposal is as true infill development. Because it's really an extension of the North Macon Terrace neighborhood, we provided in your packet before an analysis of how the lots that are being proposed here are larger than the lots that are in North Macon Terrace, that the square footage minimums of buildings are larger in this development than in North Macon Terrace, that the proposed price points of this would actually raise the average assessed price for this area by close to $11,000. And really that's the true intent. Now we can kind of take a look at, does it meet those density bonuses? But in the comprehensive plan, the entire idea around adding upper and middle income housing comes from some of these same principles. It's the thought of you can develop up to 4 units an acre maximum if you meet certain density bonuses. And in looking at this one, it meets 35 of the 38 density bonuses if you go and track those out in pages 21 to 23 in your packet. The ones it doesn't meet are additional energy efficiency standards. I believe the varied architecture throughout, because generally it's 6 homes. It's kind of the same elevations that would be throughout. And
Say 12 homes.
I forget the 12 homes. Sorry, and I forget the third one that it doesn't meet.
Some entrances don't face the street.
But now they do. So that need to be updated. But so in looking at that, because we really want to see, is new development that we're bringing to the town, does it meet as much, does it add to Ashland and what makes Ashland Ashland? And so with those density bonuses being met, 92% of them, with the request being for 3.2 units an acre when you look at the overall density now of the neighborhood. And with also policy language about meeting the needs for senior housing. That's why staff is recommending approval with those proffers that are included. And so for the conditional use permit, there were some good comments brought up in discussion last meeting about how would the HOA work, how would some of these maintenance items or these lots be sold. And a lot of that will take care of itself in the HOA legislation that it needs to be vetted and presented to the town. So that was something that was going to occur in regulation already, but as a part of the conditional use permit, I think referencing that and bringing that up to the front would ensure that this area gets well maintained and managed and meets those requirements. We had, in looking back at past approvals of conditional use permits for whether it be accessory structures or duplexes, There's usually a concept plan that's with this, so because it's a rezoning, we have a proffered concept plan, but we would also reference that in the conditional use permit. There's just some different parking laws that we have around that you can actually, in some residential areas, just be permitted to park your cars in rear side street yards. So now that we have the conditional use permit, this might be a good lever to have that, add that language in there that would negate that from occurring. And then I think one of the discussions we got to last time was because there are no garages on the house, where are people going to store all these items? And so with this conditional use permit, you basically wouldn't have quote outdoor, large outdoor storage. You would have to have a shed or some type of accessory structure where you put your items in. Or I think they had talked about the second floor of the house might be that location. So those are the staff recommended conditions with the conditional use permit. And with that, with the proffers that we have that are updated and now meet those legal requirements and can be enforced, with the ability of really this development meeting those 92% of the density bonuses that are listed out in the comprehensive plan, recommending approval. And then for the conditional use permit, the 4 conditions that you see before you there in the staff report, we believe those would mitigate against any negative impact along with the proffers to recommended approval of the conditional use permit. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Garrett.
Here to answer questions.
Does any other member of staff have anything they would like to bring up prior to opening the public hearing? Okay. All right.
Really brief question about numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
The density bonuses, just to check, we are now at 36 rather than 35 out of 38 because of the front-facing.
Could be, yeah. I'll look back through and make sure that was
What's
the
this?
one.
I'm sorry, we mentioned that 35 out of the 38 possible density bonuses have been met, but it looks like it might actually be 36, which is not a huge deal. It's a 3%.
But the 92% goes up.
Yeah, because I think I had scored them lower because the previous one didn't have the front-facing entrances, which we call out, and so this does. So, yeah, so it's up to 36 out of 38 now.
Great.
Another numbers question, I guess. Overall density of the 3.28, that's taking into account all of North Macon Terrace that is currently existing and saying that this is also North Macon Terrace, because this lot is actually about 4.5 units per acre.
Correct.
Oh, is this? But this is not going to be a part of that subdivision or HOA or anything to that effect. It just has access through it.
Correct. From a management standpoint, it is different.
I was just wondering how we can look at it both ways, as opposed to it is its own standalone infill community. As to whether for example, low density allows for 1 to 4 per acre. 3.2 is within that. Medium density of 2 to 5, which is what it seems like this is 4.5. And so I'm wondering which one we should be focused on as commissioners. Does
Correct.
that make sense?
We looked at this. Well, there's a few lenses you look at development, how it's managed, which many times we don't look at from a planning perspective. That's on the private landowners, whether they want a HOA or not.
Yeah.
So this is from a purely planning perspective of, is this a general extension of that neighborhood or a part of it? And that's how we viewed this as that. Would you say anything else, Nora, to that?
And I guess what I'm going. So if I bought a piece of land, doesn't exist. Bought a piece of land adjacent to. I'll pick out the wetland because I can't do anything with it. The wetland that's adjacent to / cottage. There's potential that, as opposed to looking at that as property in and of itself and having to meet its own densities, it could be connected to either / cottage or the roads connecting to that Maple Street, et cetera, because that's probably how it would be. So if I developed that, I could attach it to that to make my densities.
If it's part of an infill, I think the way staff is looking at it, Planning Commission can look at it however you see fit and based off of the comprehensive plan. But staff is looking at this as an infill project. For example, if a Green Acres project or an East Ashland project, those are standalone projects that are looked at as new subdivisions. This is an infill of North Macon Terrace. It's the continuation of two stubbed out roads to complete a project. And so in some cases, we might bring you both numbers and look at it in both cases. But in this one, we felt it was part of the entire neighborhood.
Thank you.
Okay, that helps. All right, we'll open the public hearing for rezoning 160609 and CUP
Do
160609.
those separately, Andrea?
We should vote on them separately. I think it's okay to combine them because they're.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, I was thinking the same thing, but I was going to hopefully get a motion for separate when we do the final. Okay. All right, well, the public hearing is open for both items. Would anybody like to come forward and speak? If you would come up and state your name and address.
Suzanne Allen.
If you-
I'm adjacent to the property. I still have concerns about the two communities blending together. I'm disappointed in the comprehensive plan meetings that I've been attending to keep it low density. I understand and I appreciate that the architect made some adjustments because my property borders that. I still have concerns about the HOAs, our subdivision to their subdivision, stormwater runoff, and I think it needs further study, to look into this. I did talk with Garrett.
Can I ask you a question? Are there two HOAs?
There's going to be two.
I'm new at this.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
I think there's going to be two HOAs, one for
Oh,
North
thank
Macon Terrace and one for Strawberry Fields.
Yes, just one for this development, though.
Okay.
So it's not going to be like a combined
Yeah.
neighborhood. It's going to be separate. Still a lot of confusion with that. And I don't know if you can answer any of those questions, because I don't want it to turn into, and I used to live in Slash Cottage, but I don't want it to turn into another Slash Cottage where there's no HOA, there's no maintenance continuing and stuff like that. So I'm kind of disappointed in the planning committee and the comprehensive plan to move forward with this so quickly without some further studies, looking into it. And it's going to, this is all I have to say, I'm disappointed.
Okay. Ms. Allen?
Go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say was, you'd stated your name, but what is your address? I know you'd
I'm
spoken.
309 Haley Court.
Okay, and so you border on
I border the property.
Haley side?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And we do have landscaping there, and they did make accommodations for that landscaping, and I do appreciate that. But putting 12 homes on 2.66 acres, that's what my concern is. Traffic, things like that. Did you have a question?
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Again, please come up and state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Mike Pence. I think I spoke the last time in reference to the same project, and I'm the acting realtor in reference to the liquidation of that project, of which was commented in staff report. Just wanted to clarify a couple of things here. This property, while we are speaking of 12 units there, and yes, it will be, there will be a lot 100, for example, if we use 100 as an example, and it would be a 100A and a 100B, so they would be separately deeded parcels. We're not condensing two pieces of land on any one piece that an individual owner would not have fee simple rights to, so it would be an
Excuse me, could you explain that again? No
if you have 6 units, of which we've proposed, and you have a 100, 101 through 5, that would give you 6 units in there. Each of those numbers would have a 101, a 100A, and a 100B, so it would have a whatever would be selected as itemization to differentiate from the other unit in there. It would be a separate deeded GPIN number in reference to the county, tax parcel number, tax parcel, and everything. It would not be consolidated in sort of a chaotic type of scenario. It would be an individual itemized unit that any homeowner or landowner would purchase. It would be no different. It would just have a 100A, 100B, 101A, 101B. And we go on down the road, And so you've got 12 units there, all separately fee simple, meaning that you have total and complete individualism of ownership and not obligated to some other entity of sorts. Mr. Flanagan certainly understands this being in the real estate industry there. So that is, I think, a key thing for you folks to understand there in the layout of this thing. It does not have abnormalcy. It just has identity that has a little bit different terminology to it. The other thing, as was spoken of here, is the fact that this property in here would possibly infringe upon some of the adjoining properties, and we've spoken to some of the other parties that have spoken and so forth. But when you look at this property, and this was on the very first visual that you had up, Mr. Pryor, if it's possible to see that, you can visualize what is happening here. With 6 units,
Right.
Go back to where we showed the adjoining neighborhood. Yeah. All right. Look at that. Look at that right there. Look at that. Look at above this property. You see each of those houses. 1, 2, 3. If you count the street frontage there, and you count 8 houses, that's what's allowed for in here. You take those. Look between each of those houses. You've got green space between each house because you've got setbacks between each house. On the proposed project in here, those two are going to join together, and you're going to have a parcel A and B. So what have you done? You freed up some of that green space in between that house, and you put it on the fringes. The amount of acreage in here, as Mr. Flanagan has spoken in reference to, is the amount of acreage. Now, we're going to put 8 units on it by right, or we're going to put 12 units on it, condensed, itemized in their fee simple identity and ownership, and therefore increase the surrounding area. You would increase the surrounding area of landscaping in there by the amount, as opposed to taking 8 units and dispersing those over. That Hanover County is doing the same thing. That's what a RC is, a rural cluster. You get 16 units per 100 acres in there so that you cluster your houses and you don't put one house on every 10 acres throughout the 10-acre area of the Western Hanover. It's done so to conserve space. So that's a technique in order to allow better planning and so forth, and I think it serves itself well in here. Yes, it's an individual neighborhood, and yes, it has its own identity and would have its own homeowners. I don't know how you would infiltrate without the agreement of some other entity to join in, unless that hadn't been brought to the table before staff here tonight. So we don't even consider that a possibility, to my understanding. But that would be the case. And as far as planning is concerned, planning has had numerous meetings throughout the course of this thing. I've been a part of some of them, and only a part of some of them. Mr. Pryor has diligently sent out emails and correspondence. He's worked diligently on this project in here. So to say that staff has not given adequate attention to this matter is a far-sightedness of an understatement in there, in all due respect. To our colleagues here, it has had ample review and back and forth in reference to conditions being met. And the same process would continue. We are in Hanover County. We are in the town of Ashland. It has a reputation to uphold. Everybody knows that you have to comply with the rules and regs in reference to what's done. So it will have a site plan that will have to comply with what these people supervise. Any questions in reference to anything I've said, I'd be glad to try to address, but otherwise I just felt
My big question.
Clarification.
How can you put 2 houses on one lot and have simple fee ownership?
It would be lot 101A and lot 101B.
But the line's not drawn on my maps.
That would be the way that it would be separated.
You have to draw the line and figure out whether this shower goes with that.
No.
I owned a house like this in Philadelphia many years ago, where it was side by side. We call them row houses or townhouses. And I owned half the wall, and I owned the house and the lot that it was on. but there's no line drawn here.
It may not be on that plan there, would be my thoughts and clarification
It'd be interesting to see the line.
before any conveyance of any property, and any attorney or closing company of authority would convey any property, it would have to have that fee simpleness. You wouldn't buy that property and have something adjoining. and have
It looks like somebody's
liabilities.
still going to buy it and rent them out. That, when it's drawn without the property line on it.
It would be, is probably maybe an oversight or something. I haven't looked at them that closely. But the normal situation would be a line in the city of Richmond, in some areas and all.
Oh, yeah.
You have zero property lines.
I've been trying to draw the line because that's to zig around the two showers that are between the two
Yeah,
houses.
What we're doing is not, and what we're doing here is not uncommon to the real estate industry.
Okay, so anyway, the answer to my question is there will be 12 houses on 12 lots.
There'd be 12 houses on 12 individual conveyed lots,
Yeah.
but there'll be 6 units,
Six structures.
6 structures
I
in
understand
there
that,
as
but there's
such.
12
12 fee
homes on
simple
12
units.
lots.
That's correct.
These two close together and
I
then the
think
next
that's
two further
clarified.
apart, right?
Right,
correct.
okay.
And that just doesn't show on the,
That would,
Description.
everything would be conveyed with entitlement and so
Okay.
forth, and a proper authority.
There will be, from what you've shown so far, is 6 lots will be sold with 12 homes.
with two houses on a lot. That's
2
what-
houses on a lot.
That's the way it's drawn.
That's the way it's drawn, and that's the way it has to be
It-
drawn to
it-
meet the legal regulations
Because then we have setbacks.
for setbacks, for side setbacks for housing.
Well, how can you own a fee simple then?
Otherwise, it would be like a duplex.
Which is-
Yeah.
Yeah, one-
Which
one
would
person
have a
buys
different
one
set
and
of
rents
set-
out the other or something.
Yeah.
Or
So
is
if
there a
you're in-
condominium?
Yeah, so if your intent was to have 12 lots, then that's not, is what shown on the plan, and we'll have to
Speak out
work
of
through.
authority in
Yeah.
reference to my understanding, in reference, I've
Sure.
conveyed my understanding, so I'd better surrender that position to someone else, if that be
What
the
do we do?
case.
What do we
But
do?
in order to have clarity for conveyance and all, it would
Yeah.
be my understanding that it would have that 100 would be that lot,
Sure,
but that is an A and B.
yeah.
But the legal description on that lot would be the same, pretty
Yes.
much. You couldn't, yeah.
The
I think-
legal description on the lot would be the same, yes, but it would
You're
be
talking
identified
address.
as A. Just like I'm in Ashland Center condominiums, there are 4 units in there on that one lot.
But it's a
And then the,
condominium, right?
the,
That is a condominium.
the homeowners association would then deal with what is, how property is maintained. If I own 100A,
Thank you.
I might own the lot and my unit, and 100B is on my lot,
That's like implied almost because.
and then the association would
Sounds like
deal with
somebody's
who
gonna buy
has
two
rights
houses.
to
I wouldn't see how that
sit in the yard,
Could you
as
set up
almost
six-
a-
would you set up 6 condominium?
lien.
So there's two
Sorts.
houses on one lot and a condominium?
Which is-
I wouldn't understand how that would be able
I
to
don't
be
understand
conveyed
either.
without that A and B, to have that clarity of identity there. It would have meets and bounds according.
And I don't know if we want to close the public hearing. We'll go to discussion. But,
We'll make sure we
yeah.
have others. I just wanted to ask Mr. Pence, I'm sorry you did not give an address, even if it's a business.
Pardon?
What is your address?
202 England Street, Suite B.
Okay.
I'm Sweet B. Has spoken of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak during the public hearing time regarding this issue? Again, please state your name and address.
Thank you. Joe Furio, architect, 202 England Street, Suite B.
Okay.
Yes, well, I believe that concerns about how the lot is shared will be worked out in the development of the HOA. I heard some concerns, the homeowners association. No?
I don't think it normally would be handled through the HOA.
Well, the idea is to have maintenance-free living for people who are, in an age-in-place.
Right. I think, though, in terms of the ownership, I think you're going to need to probably give some clarity to that.
Yes. Okay, we'll have to research that.
Yeah.
We will definitely have to research that. But the intent is to provide a home that is age-in-place, 55-plus community So when we develop the HOA, the intention is to have the corporation take care of all the needs for the properties individually. These houses would have some restrictions, so somebody who has a 55-foot boat, they may not buy into this community. They may not be able to bring their boat there. There'll be other restrictions too. Maybe somebody likes to do elaborate gardening. Not everybody who is 55 years old is ready to settle down and live in their last home. I'll be 50 in October, and I can't ever imagine putting myself in a home like that.
I'm going to jump in here too. My name's William Bolfont, and I just want to jump in. Yeah, with the way y'all were explaining and Mike was explaining, it is the correct way that I wanted it to be presented. And I think, because it's no way to get it proper title or deed to a piece of property without the said property being attached to the house. Similar to what you do in Philadelphia. I live in the city of Richmond, and that's what I got. So there's those boundaries, and it does have to be established with the land. And I appreciate y'all's time, but it is something that has to be worked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Mr. Bulfon, hold that thought just for a second. I just want to clarify what you're saying is you're talking 12 lots as opposed to 6 then.
Well, the way that it was being presented, I guess, because it is 12 units, and it is 6 blocks, but they are going to be divided by 2. Each one will have its own ownership. You own your land and the unit.
Okay.
You're not buying a duplex. You're buying an individual home.
Right.
That helps clarify it.
Okay. That makes selling them easier. And it just keeps it really simple.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else above and beyond it just makes it too cloudy, and it just gets my head spinning around. So, but anyhow, I'm trying to keep it simple, and that's what I would like to have.
Okay.
Yeah, but in presentation, I guess I know what I want to convey, and so it's like this is what I want. And so, if you don't mind, I don't mean to waste y'all's time.
No.
But I appreciate y'all's time and every opportunity that y'all have given me, and I appreciate it. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get it drawn up one more time, and I appreciate y'all's time very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So what I did on this go-around is I increased area for stormwater management, for a tree buffer, and which is clearly shown in the sketch. So there's ample room to deal with stormwater and undisturbed land, a clear buffer between these houses and the neighbors. But also another thing that I want to point out is that I didn't have time to work on researching the HOA. It was my intention to meet with the community at Haley Court to discuss what they have so that we could accommodate them in a manner that is useful and helpful and beneficial to us both. So that's all I have to say, and I really appreciate your time and effort and giving me the honor to present before you and develop this property to this point that I have it at. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Okay. Come up and state your name and address, please.
My name is Carol Hawk, and I live at 306 Haley Court.
Okay.
And I'm one of the ones that's going to be, affected by all of this and the amount of mess and the noise and everything tore up that we created there. All of that buffer, I did that. I'm the one who takes care of that whole entire cul-de-sac. And the amount of mess that they were going to cause, it's really heartbroken, and I'm thinking very seriously about selling my house because of this. I mean, I just don't see how it's going to work. I really don't. I mean, they say one thing, then they turn around and say one thing else, and then they tell us they've met with us or going to meet with us. Nobody's met with none of us in that cul-de-sac. None of us. We've come to each and every one of these meetings since this thing started, and no one has, of these people have said anything to us. I don't want it to be like Slash Cottage. I mean, I have taken care of that entire neighborhood. When I moved in there 14 years ago, when my house was built in there, I don't want it to be destroyed. I mean, none of y'all would want that. And we're very concerned about it. Just because the other 6 don't show up, they've all come to me. They've all complained about it. I mean, it's a quiet little neighborhood. You know, I know developments have to happen, but, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's all I have to say.
Can I ask you a question, ma'am?
Ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I understand your passion about your neighborhood. I appreciate that. So are you opposed to any development at all? I mean,
No,
so what in particular?
Whatever happens in another neighborhood or another area.
No. I meant development of this particular property.
Yes.
So you don't want to develop to
No,
anything
I don't.
at all?
I have thought very hard about it, and I haven't gotten up before to say anything because I get very emotional about it, and I just don't want it to happen. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak during this public hearing? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring this back up to the commissioners, and we'll open discussion. Mr. Flanagan.
I'm going to kind of breeze past a couple of things because I don't want to talk about, with my couple of seconds here, the lot lines and things of that nature, because that'll be dealt with, and we'll talk about that at some point as to whether it's a duplex, these are becoming condominiums with shared space, or single family, separate 12 lot lines, that kind of thing. One of the questions I had was, and I understand this is not exactly to scale, and that, you know, it's not this is where the wall is going to be. But with that being said, I was trying to get together this presentation here, along with what we were given on page 20, which shows the proposed future roads, and things of that nature, and what it looked like, both on 20 and again then looking at 25, and I'm trying to piece the three together in my mind. If something were to be done, it kind of looks like Callie's going to come down almost like the headlights are going towards Lot 3's farthest unit, and then it'll kind of bend around it and then bend back to eventually get out to North Sneed.
No, the GIS lines are a little incorrect.
So
if you go
so
to page,
Callie would kind of
go to page 33. So page 33 is the actual surveyed plat.
Do you have that, Garrett, that you can put up here?
Yes, I do.
And that's what I was going to get to is what we're seeing with this image here before you switch. The road is going to be a more gradual, straight line out to North Sneed. It's not zigzagging like it appears on some of the images.
Yeah, because the GIS was off, and that's one of the things we got clarified when we first started this on where the actual property lines are not. I'll bring that up, though. And then the road to the west would just be an extension of Haley Court that would line up into that property.
Yeah, and I just want to, the reason for my clarification again is just to make sure that we're getting more along that grid pattern that we've talked about and just throughout, and it's not undue bends and angles, which I know this particular part of Ashland has some crazy Y intersections and things already. I don't want to intensify that should something take place.
Yeah, this is...
That's better. Yeah.
That's a better image of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So. What? Yeah, what Mr. Flanagan's talking about. The GIS shows that this parcel line goes all the way over here, but it doesn't. It runs pretty much along the edge. So what would happen in this property is that this area right here would be dedicated to the town, and a road would be constructed. And then this area of their property that kind of lines up to this point and goes to the middle would be dedicated right-of-way. And so when development occurred down here or down there that necessitated road extension, those developers would be,
That's when it would extend
yeah,
on through.
that's when it would extend down there. They would pay for that road extension.
Okay. And then kind of the second part of this, because I was trying to, when I was figuring out those lines, I was also just running numbers. Again, if we can situate the whole, this is what a lot is,
Yeah.
situation, am I correct that if one of these units is not built, so that there are 5 units, 10 homes, the 10 divided by the 2.66 gets the low density that is surrounded by the area in and of itself without North Macon Terrace, because at that point it would be at the high end of low density 3.76.
Yep.
And it wouldn't have to change from the low to the high.
Correct.
Did that sound correct?
Yeah, 10 units.
you.
So what you were saying, 10 units an acre, or sorry, 10,
10
units
units
on this
for 2.6.
would get you to 3.76 units an acre,
Including the road or not including the road?
including
Well,
the road.
yeah.
And then what's being proposed is 12 units, which on 2.66 units acre, which is 4.6 overall.
Thank you.
More discussion?
So if they had the 10 units instead of 12, they wouldn't really be here, right? I mean, it wouldn't be an issue.
No,
You'd still have to have the discussion
and the
of,
conditional use permit.
yeah, you'd still have the discussion, I think, of did they meet enough of those things to get to the higher end of that 1 to 4, and
Yeah. I mean, we would say that we're looking at the context of this as 3.28, and so really what you're looking at, that is 10 units plus the North Macon Terrace neighborhood, which gets you to a lower, probably closer to 3 units an acre.
Can you remind me, just for the sake of discussion, what by right is here?
By right, like Mr. Pence talked about, is around 8 houses, including the road.
So 4 units.
So 8 houses, which is 3 units an acre.
8 single-family homes.
8 single-family homes.
Currently zoned.
Not, okay.
8 divided by 2.66. So 3.0, so 3 units an acre exactly is what you can do by right. So again, and already looking at that 1 to 4 units an acre overall, because of the zoning that's in place here, you're already up to 3 units an acre that you can do by right.
And they can start building tomorrow at 3 units an acre.
Correct. With no other stipulations in here.
And that would
As
end
far
up-
as the
that would end up
design
with
or
8
that type of
houses.
thing. End up with 8 houses
I mean,
instead of 12.
totally don't understand that 1 to 4 stuff.
I said I was done, but actually I do want to make sure that you realize you were heard. That this discussion is not saying that we didn't hear you. It's talking logistics and things of that nature. But as far as the land being developed, I grew up when it was one stoplight, and though the love of Ashland in me would love for us to have the one stoplight town, I also know that that's probably not going to, unfortunately, come back to us. And so it's kind of I'm discussing if something takes place with this land, what's best for Ashland and things of that nature. But I do want to make sure that you know you were heard.
I have a question.
If you do, you need to come up here, but the public hearing is closed.
Oh, did we?
So
It's okay.
I'd say go ahead, because since we're under discussion, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine, but please come up here.
If they put the 12 units in there, how is that going to work? Are they going to are y'all going to put a spec home in there and then?
A what?
A spec home, like they're going to build 1 unit and then sell it? Is that how is it going to work? How does that work? Like Lance & Bridal had a spec home.
Sure.
And then they built it. It took several years to build all the units on their property across from Slash Cottage. How is this going to work?
Good question.
Would they build one side of the house, of the duplex, or 2?
Sure, and we'd probably have to have the applicant answer that.
Yeah,
Because
they-
the selling model
and
is
do
not
they have
something
to come
that,
forward as
we
well?
would intricately know about. But if they want to respond to that.
If you'd like to respond, please come up and respond. If you don't have an answer right now.
Yeah, the way I was trying to arrange my financing, I was going to do counting them as double units or single units, I was going to put like 4 at one time.
4.
Yes.
Two buildings,
Two sets
four
of
units.
2 sets of one. Oh, well, one set of 2. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, A and B. I'm going to do 2 sets of A and B. Plus a development fee. I mean, all the roads, all that stuff will be done. All the development costs will be done first, plus 4 units. That's what I borrowed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have a,
Bob, you go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
I was going to say, go ahead.
Architectural question. There's a map on page 20. It shows little white blocks for the houses. And those houses on that look like they're drawn about half the size of what's on the page. It'd be interesting to see a real site plan showing, apropos of the neighbors concerned about the density of things. It'd be interesting to see a plan where the actual plan of the house in white on page 20.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Is page 34 much closer?
If you look at the, looks pretty nice on page 20 with lots of space around it. It'd be interesting to see what it's like.
This,
Page 34.
Look at I know.
I'd see what Mr. Brown's saying.
You put
Basically,
page
we would
34
need
on page 20.
Yeah. So the page that you were just referencing, that picture is just my estimation of those blocks. Correct.
Yeah, and they're
we would have to ask the applicant to put some type of rendition of the larger area that shows these in context for that.
I missed the last meeting, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that would just be a design question we would ask for them as far as in that presentation.
It's got to do with the density and how close houses are compared to the density and how close houses are on the street already.
yeah, I think that a good, Mr. Pence might have pointed this out, a good way to look at that are the houses and the lots behind it.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, I mean.
It's almost like the property line's drawn down the middle, not quite, but.
But the houses aren't drawn.
Right.
How big is the space between the houses on the,
right.
on Macon Terrace, for instance?
I mean, as far as like a measurement?
Yeah, these look like they're, how close are the houses here on this one?
They're probably 20
To
feet
see
as
the-
well.
Yeah.
10 feet side yards.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have, because these homes are together, and then you have larger lots and more space, you're going to have more space between the homes.
It doesn't look
Yeah.
it. It doesn't look it on the page 34.
As in 20 feet, 30 feet?
Yeah, I mean, it's got it scaled here. Let me see what some of these lines say.
The minimum
Still the
between
same
the
setback.
units should be 20 feet because you have
Yeah.
10 feet
10
on
and
either
10.
side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, so it's very similar to the other. See, if 6 big houses that are actually subdivided into 2 homes.
Basically, yeah.
Other comments?
I do, but I need just a moment before somebody would like to fill time.
Okay. While James is getting his comments together, I did want to just mention that personally I do have questions, and Mr. Fierro mentioned that he was trying to make contact with Macon Terrace's HOA, which hopefully that will occur. And I think we do have the unanswered questions about the lots and the conveyance, so I know that you all will research that. I do look at road extension and possible concern that I have of increasing density is future development and precedents we may or may not set. And so I am a little concerned about that, but I think right now that we still have unanswered questions, as Mr. Bulifant mentioned, that I think he was ready to maybe delay this a little bit until all these I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So, Mr. Murray.
Right, and so one of the questions that I had, I mean, like, I agree. It does sound like there are a few questions left to be answered. But that being said, it would be nice to be able to make sure that next time that we talk about this, that we don't go, well, it looks like there's a few questions we said. So if we can kind of try to look at everything briefly before we, so if a few more things need to be fixed, that everything can be done in one time. It's a long process, and aware that, members of adjacent properties have been here for a while. You all have been here for a while, so to try to hurry things along, I am curious about the new layout. In the proffers right now, it mentions that about variations in elevation. No more than 2 houses shall be substantially similar in elevation to be built on the property. By placing all of the entrances to face front along the street, this layout is now looking a lot more similar, all of the pieces together. Is there still enough architectural variation, or would there be? I mean, is there enough that there can be substantially different in elevation?
That would be a question for the architect. We would, on our side, look at each elevation when the building permit came in to make sure that it was...
Right, okay, so that doesn't necessarily have to be... I mean,
so what we have is a sample elevation. It's not to say that all 12 units are going to be exactly the same. That
They will
you might
not
throw
be.
a dormer or something to that effect in to take care of that.
Yeah, correct, because that language that Mr. Murray just mentioned would negate all the elevations being the exact same.
right, and so that being said, we have 2 front elevations right now in the packet on pages 36 and 37, and we also have the proper number 8. Houses constructed on the property shall be in general conformance with the elevations included. General conformance, I remember we've had this conversation at other times, but general conformance doesn't mean that they have to, it's not specific conformance, it's elements have to be of the same general type. Right, okay. So there's no need for us to see more front elevations given now that all of the entrances are facing the front.
What we would look at in particular are the windows, and that it's 2 stories, that it has the porch and patio area, and that the materials are similar to what's shown.
Right. Thank you.
So is the front elevation for each side of a unit going to be the same or different?
It will be different.
Say front.
Front. It's the variation proffer that Mr. Murray just read, which is what number again?
I'm sorry. I changed the page. That was number 11.
So they'll be the same or different?
No more than 2 can be the same.
But they could be side by side and be the same?
I think it
Correct.
would allow for that.
Yes.
So that's in the entire
Okay.
neighborhood. So no
Okay.
more than 2 of the 12 would be the same.
Okay.
All right, so of the 12, right, and that's...
So you'd have at least 6 different.
Right, that means that each of these 6 different buildings, each of which
Sorry, I was trying to
have
listen.
12 units. So I'm looking at, in terms of substantial conformity to the, or general conformity to the elevations, on page 35, for instance, on this elevation, the front elevation, those units are essentially mirror copies of each other.
The rear elevation?
Correct.
The front elevation.
Rear both.
I got you.
Right, yeah, they're both mirrors.
They're mirrored.
So listing things that you would look at in terms of compliance, whether or not this unit is mirrored, is that something that you would look at?
It's my understanding through the proffer that we have today that the 2 units on 1 lot, or 2 units on 2 lots, however it is, the one structure could, each A and B unit could be the same. And if it's mirrored, that's fine. That
Right.
could just not be done on another lot.
But because it appears mirrored on this elevation, whether or not something is mirrored is not necessarily
Oh, no.
a criteria for
No,
it. Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't
No.
understand your question.
So how that would work in tandem with proffer number 11 is you have on page 35, you've got the similar elevation on your 2 units. And so, like Nora said, that's that you've used up basically that elevation for the development. And so the next 2 units you go to, you can't use this same elevation in going to build that.
So
But his question was, do each of those units have to be a mirrored image? And no, they
No,
wouldn't.
they don't.
Okay.
I'm looking at page 36 and 37.
They're
So if they were side by side,
Yeah, 36 and
Right.
37 are different, so that's,
Yeah.
I was looking at the only
Yeah.
one
If
that
they were-
showed the two that were connected.
It's a challenge to the architect.
Can we ask what their intention might be?
yeah, I mean,
Can you advise what your intention is?
Would you like me to step forward?
Sure, please.
Yes, thank you for coming forward, but
Okay, during the course of responding to comments from previous submissions, in order to increase area for stormwater maintenance and a hedge around the property, I tried to make a more efficient layout, which would also require have the added benefit of having a front entrance face the street and
Yeah.
have straight property lines. And so that's where the process took me. So now we have units that are mirrored but juxtaposed, as it shows in the plan. And originally, I had, based on the front elevation, we have 6 units. We had 3 different distinct front elevations, so we would not repeat it more than twice. Here in this situation, we have a mirrored unit that are identical, same concept, same idea. We have 3 different front elevations that are not to be repeated more than twice. That being said, if we are in fact tabling this to the next month, I would consider doing a little more design work, doing things that would make it less repetitive, less mirrored, and make it more inviting, possibly using the same intention and create possibly 6 different elevations so that there'd be more variety. And that wouldn't be difficult for me to do. And I would look forward to doing that because I think it would look better and be more appealing, have better curb appeal.
okay, I think that
Yes, that,
helps
thank you. That
with
is
some, yeah.
very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
This has got nothing to do with anything, but I could imagine moving into this house and turning the garage into a front porch.
Actually, can I stand up
Yeah.
and respond to that? I'm sorry. The garages, those are actually carports.
I know. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, so it's like,
When they go right to the front door, I could
has a
imagine making a
dual
front
use.
porch and not park there.
it's a dual use. You could use it as a front porch and a carport.
Yeah.
Let's say there's hail predicted.
Your car.
You don't want your car all wrecked from the storm. You can put
Move
it
the
in carport.
Porch furniture out of the way
I'll
and pull
come
her
over
in.
with my car under your carport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we are ready for a motion on both these actions, I'd like to take them separately, the rezoning and the CUP. Do I hear a motion for the rezoning?
I move to defer rezoning 16-0609 Boulevard Homes. And are we deferring it specifically to the next meeting or until, yes, okay, until our next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting?
Okay. Joe?
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Flanagan?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Are we going to have a list of things that are going to be addressed before they come back? Because we had a lot of questions like property lines and such. Is that going to be
yes, I can go
designated?
over those.
Can you? So that
Yeah.
when, like you said, we get it all done.
Yeah,
See, can you list that before I vote?
yeah. We've got the lot lines and setbacks, the HOA, and how its possible compatibility with North Macon Terrace, and then elevations and variations, how those work in tandem, and if they have additional elevations they want to provide.
And did you mentioned HOA, correct?
Yes.
Between these two folks. So
What about the HOA?
There were questions about either one, what are the specifics of it, because those are yet to be seen, and then how might it work in tandem with North Macon Terrace? Would it not? That just is yet to be determined.
So these questions will be answered by both parties, given to you and presented to us.
Hoping so.
Okay, great. Then, aye.
Ms. Jewell?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. And now I'd like to hear a motion for the CUP, please.
Real quick, can you tell me if the same thing with the conditions, though, that were presented by staff? Are those good conditions, bad conditions? Do you have questions about those?
I think they were good, personally.
Page 16.
Thank you.
Maybe I shouldn't have said anything if they were so great. It would have been okay.
You did it.
Well, now you're in trouble. And it's what you had listed up there and gone over earlier.
Yeah.
For those who don't have that, is developed within substantial conformity with conceptual plan. No date given. No parking of automobiles in the rear yard or street side yards. No open storage outdoors. All materials and items shall be stored in a primary or accessory structure. Number 4, the homeowners association paperwork approved by the town attorney before the CUP approval to fulfill the requirements of state or section 17. 14.1. So do I hear a is that, do you have any others you'd like to
No,
add for the
we're good.
CUP? Okay, do I hear a motion for the CUP?
To defer CUP 16-0609 Boulevard Homes until the next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Flanagan?
Aye.
Ms. Jewell?
Aye. Thank you.
It's October 12th, if you guys want to know. October 12th.
Our next meeting's up. Okay. Thank you all.